G'day, Birdman Pete, welcoming you to day 3 of No Kidding, No Crashing. And today we've changed the lineup of the aircraft. The Walkera is certainly the easiest to maintain in height and position, so I'm going to make it easy for myself for using that. Today we are stepping out. We're starting to move away from the launch point. We won't be going very high, we won't be going very far in that exercise. But I do have another exercise for you. We are deliberately going to go a little bit higher and get a little bit more practice in descending onto the launch platform. See you out there. Okay, this time we're going to try and do this at 500 mils. Okay, opening the throttle. Giving a good nudge. Okay, hover there, good height. Go forward, adding a fraction of power. Too much power. Now it's arrived at the 3 metre point a little high, so I've reduced the power and come back. There's my hover point. Yes, we're rather exaggerating here. We'll come back to the hover point. There's the hover point, 500 mils, coming back. Stopping over the launch point, going too high. The wind is proving the problem here. It's very hard to maintain an altitude when a gust of wind comes. .500 mils above the launch, going forward, holding 500 mils over the forward point, returning to base, holding 500 mils above the return point, translational flight left. Holding hover above the left point. Tracking back, translational right to the launch point. Holding hover above the launch point. Descending. Stopping recording, changing camera position. Throttle up. Nudge. 500 mils over launch point. Proceeding to upwind marker. Hovering at 500 mils over upwind marker. Returning to launch point. Hovering over launch point, tracking right to right hand waypoint, hovering over right hand waypoint, tracking left to launch point, hovering at 500 mils over return point, landed. .45 degrees left, pause. 45 degrees right, pause. 45 degrees right, pause. 45 degrees left, pause. 45 degrees left, pause. 45 degrees right, pause. 45 degrees left, pause. 45 degrees left, pause. 45 degrees right, pause. Going back to 1.7 metres, easing, adding, easing, adding, easing, adding, easing, adding, easing, adding, 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 easing, 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 adding, easing, adding, easing. Okay. You know, I think I rather prefer instructing people in flying these things when the student is standing by my side, because in that situation I don't have to do any flying. I just stand next to them and criticise like crazy in the nicest possible way. And it's so much more relaxing. In this situation I've got to do some good flying, provide some good commentary and hope that it's all recognisable. Well, you get that. The rain stopped the play, and as I look out the window now, I think to myself, I'm happy to be in here because the wind is blowing a hurricane and there's crowds of kids doing their sports athletic event I'm so glad I'm old. Now, I bailed out at the point where I was going to tell you about translational flight. Translational flight in a helicopter is that time when the aircraft has stopped hovering and now it's moving in a direction. It's not necessarily forward. For a helicopter, that is just as much translational flight as that is. Fair enough. But when you go into translational flight, things change a bit. The first is that the aircraft is no longer level. And so in theory, you ought to be adding power. And you heard me repeatedly saying that I should add some power, and then you saw that I'd added too much. That's because when the aircraft goes into translational flight, it's moving into clean air, and the air is trying to go through the propellers faster. The result is the extra compression gives you a gain in height just out of the move to translational. Now, this is something that has to be watched very carefully and practiced with endlessly. It's difficult in this training situation where we're trying to keep the model close to us. Believe me, there are very good reasons for keeping the model close to us. However, knowing that we're planning to go into translational flight and knowing that it's going to become harder to maintain 500 millimeters, I need to prepare you to maintain stable flight at a little bit more altitude. And the two levels which I think of most often in this respect are waist height and head height. So when we go out next time, and it could be a couple of days before this weather clears, when we go out next time, we're going to practice with me wearing a GoPro and a helmet. We're going to practice taking the aircraft to head height and making safe, slow descents. This really needs nil wind to be effectively demonstrated, and you need to practice it in very light winds. So with that said, it wasn't such a bad day, was it? Looking forward to next time.